This open to someone who knows India-US relations or a thing or two about it and has watched it from very close quarters. Timothy Roemer is the former US ambassador to India. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us. First things first, I'm sure you, like millions of others around the world, watched the debate Tuesday night. What were your impressions of how the debate panned out, and do you have a decisive winner from Tuesday night?
Well, nice to be with you and your viewers again. Always a pleasure to be on your show. I just came from the great state of Michigan, which is, as you know, a battleground state, one of the 4 or 5 states that will determine the election, and spent the day there in Ann Arbor and in Detroit. So I come from right the heat of the battle. My personal opinion of who won the debate is probably not in disagreement with most of the pundits on the Democratic and the Republican side. I thought Kamala Harris, the vice president, clearly won the debate from the outset, both on the optics. She walked right into Donald Trump's space, shook his hand, and let him know from the get-go that she was a commander-in-chief and she was going to take charge of the debate. I also thought she did a very good job talking about the issues, the economy, inflation, housing, prices, what middle-class Americans are experiencing in terms of cost, frustration with that cost. And she had specific things that she announced that she would do about those things if she was elected. Donald Trump talked a lot about immigration, which is an issue that is also prominent to most Americans. And he was very aggressive on that issue, almost too aggressive when he diverted into cats and dogs and theories about Haitians eating people and animals and everything else. And he kind of got into territory that eroded some of the credibility and seriousness that he needs to show to win that final 5 or 6% of undecided voters. So I thought Vice President Harris did a good job, and I thought she had a sense of humor at times. She wasn't taking herself too seriously. She had great facial expressions as well as substance, and it's too bad that we won't have another debate.
I do want to ask you, whatever bump up she will get, and I think there's one poll out, Reuters, Ipsos, which seems to show that she's about a couple of points up because of the debate and her debate performance. But would that bump up be good enough to see her through in November?
Yes, I think it would. I think you asked a key question in your preface to the interview. Do debate wins or victories or losses actually translate into points in the polls? Are those key voters, that 2 or 3% that decided the 2020 election, are they actually watching the debate in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin and Georgia and Arizona? What other factors are they going to consider as those people decide in the next 50 days how they're going to cast their ballots? They're going to look at, the economy and inflation. They're going to look at the freedom of choice and women's right to choose what they do with their bodies. They're going to look at immigration and, quite frankly, who's got the position on immigration to protect jobs in America and to be tough on the border. Kamala Harris has changed her position on that, said that she would not decriminalize penalties. She's going to be tougher on the border. Mm-hmm. So I think both candidates now are going to practically live in these swing states. Both Harris and Walz are, I think, in Pennsylvania and Michigan today. I think Mr. Trump is also going to those same states, along with Mr. Vance. So we're just going to see a barrage of advertising, of personal presence, of rallies, social media, all concentrating on these states. And, you haven't asked this question yet, I'm sure you will, but it's not just the presidential race that we're involved in these swing states. It is the Senate and the House races and control of the Senate and the House. These will
Okay.
be razor thin races to control the 100-person chamber in the Senate and the 435 chamber in the House. Both of those may come down to 2 or 3 seats to determine control. And ultimately, after all this money and all this time, we may well have an outcome which is divided government, which is
Yeah.
maybe Harris wins the presidency, the Republicans win the Senate, and the House is so close, it's 1 or 2 votes either way.
So I do want to ask you, this is a question, of course, that will concern a lot of our viewers here in India. Having served as a former ambassador to India, which of these two candidates, if they go on to become president, would be better for India, Trump or Harris?
Well, let's take, first of all, let me just congratulate India. India just had a magnificent election, carried it off perfectly over a 6-week period. 640 million people voted. There was not any doubt from either side, the BJP side, which eventually formed a coalition, or the Congress side, or all the other regional parties. There wasn't really any debate about the fairness and the freedom of that election. Whoever wins in India, that is a powerful sign to the world about the beacon of freedom and hope that India, as a global power, now shows that democracy works and that people vote and they have access to that ballot box. A tremendously important message to the world that India sends by that. And we have our election coming up in November. Now, who's the better candidate for India? The good news for India is that the relationship between India and the United States has progressed so significantly, deeply, and strategically over the last 15 to 20 years. Both Democrats and Republicans in the United States running for president in the Senate and the House believe in this relationship. And it's going to continue to be strong. We have strong caucuses in the House and the Senate that are led by Democrats and Republicans together working on this relationship. So that's the good news. I would say personally, in terms of 3 things, that I believe Kamala Harris is the better candidate for the relationship between the United States and India. One, I think Donald Trump is already announced that he will double tariffs from 10% to 20%. That is going to have a significant impact not only on American households. Some economists are saying that that could cost American households and taxpayers $3,000 to $4,000 per household if he jacks those tariffs up. That could also mean difficult trade relations with India. Mr. Trump tends to look at the relationship between other countries simply on deficits and surpluses,
Correct.
not on the strategic relationship between the two countries. So first, tariffs and their impact on India would be significantly negative. Vice President Harris has not talked about raising those tariffs around the world to 20%, nor on applying them directly to India because of a deficit. Secondly, I think, part of the relationship between Mr. Modi and Mr. Biden and the relationship between our government and the Indian government is based upon stability and predictability and friendship and trust. Oftentimes, Mr. Trump comes into the world powers and you don't know what's going to happen day to day. It's full of chaos. It's full of unpredictability. It's full of volatility. One day, Russia is his friend. The next day, Russia is not his friend. And that hurts predictability. And we know other partners in the world like to know ahead of time what the United States is going to do. So I think the second reason is, global strategic stability and predictability. Harris is more predictable in her relationship, both with India and with other powers in the world. And I think the third issue is Ms. Harris has a real affinity and relationship to India on a personal note and a familial note.
All right. Ambassador Roemer, as always, a pleasure speaking with you, sir. Thank you very much for for joining us and giving us your thoughts and perspective on not just the state of the race right now, and particularly so after the debate that happened earlier this week, and more importantly, which of these two candidates, in your view, might be better for India. Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure.
All right, that's a wrap of Brass Tacks, this Friday night edition. Thank you very much from me, Zaka Jacob, and the rest of the team. We'll catch you again Monday night, same time. Good night.